What is the most petty reason someone has gotten a divorce? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. That reminds me of one night I found a whole slice of bread in the middle of the dining room at my parents' house, and I was threatened with my life had I picked it up. Apparently, there had been an argument, followed by a standoff on who was going to cave and pick up that piece of bread. It stayed there for a day, even after my other siblings visited and offered to pick up said bread. For us kids, it was a Wednesday, but for the parents, it was World War III. Story 2. I'm a divorce attorney. Had a client whose wife filed for divorce because she didn't get along with his sister one time. They had one disagreement. Seriously, that was it. He didn't stick up for his wife. She got mad and filed for divorce. She said on the stand that they had a great marriage, he was a good father, but that one incident was too much. The judge told them, "This is the dumbest reason I've ever seen anyone get divorced." And he'd been a judge for April 20th, 2024. Story 3. My grandma divorced her 5th husband because he wouldn't let her remodel their kitchen. I didn't like him, but it was a dumb reason to divorce, in my opinion. Edit. There's no doubt my grandma is the issue. We apologize to people that have to meet her. To be fair, though, husband number 1 and 3. My grandfather is the same guy, and he's a pedo. Husband number 2 was by all accounts okay, though I never met him. Husband 4 was my personal favorite, but he was an alcoholic and died of cirrhosis. He was awesome when he wasn't drinking, but he was married to my grandma, so, we get it. Husband number 5 was a jerk. I didn't like him at all. Husband number 6 was really nice. He lasted 3 years and straight up moved halfway across the planet. Again, we get it. Story 4. I knew this couple. The guy was 3 years younger than me, and we went to school together as kids, where the husband was a farmer and he put his wife through school and she got her degrees. She started off as a nurse and worked her way up and became a PA. Once she started working at a doctor's office, she thought she was too smart for her dumb farmer husband and divorced him because he wasn't educated and he wasn't up to her level of intelligence. Story 5. My ex became a gym bro after getting married. 2 years into it, he asked for a divorce because he was upset I did not know how much weight he was lifting in the leg press machine. Some months before, he had banned me from going with him to the gym because I did not match his vibe. So when I returned, I was kind of doing my thing and my own routine. But not focusing fully on him was apparently the wrong move. So that narcissist type. Obviously, he had a new girl immediately after, but the reason he gave me about the weight was just so petty. Story 6. IDK if you could really say it's petty, because it's due to cheating, but the situation was kind of bizarre to me. I had these neighbors, husband and wife, lived across the street from me for a long time. They were easily in their 70s, maybe a little older. I don't know, never asked their ages. Anyway, eventually, I noticed that the wife wasn't outside with him anymore when he'd sit on the porch. I asked about her one day, and he told me that she cheated on him with a guy in his 20s and left to be with him. 50-year marriage down the drain. I guess maybe she wanted someone who was the same age as her and her husband were when they first got married. Story 7. I hope my friend doesn't mind me sharing this story, but her husband divorced her after 3 months because she wasn't cuddling or affectionate enough for him. Mind you, this was her first marriage, let alone first relationship, and this was his 3rd marriage. They both worked full-time, but he worked 2 HRs away and would sometimes have to stay the night at work because it was more convenient for him all around. But when he got home, he expected food, sex, and cuddles. Never brought this up to her until the day he said it was over. Story 8. Growing up, we had a family friend who was in a marriage we knew wouldn't last. His wife was very posh, while he was a tradesman. That wasn't the petty one, though. After they divorced, he met and married a really sweet woman who had grown up in a religious group, I don't know which. But they had rules like women could never cut their hair, and she had never watched TV before she was with him. Basically, he saved her from this religion. Because of her background, she'd never worked, and her husband never asked her to. He was happy to provide for her. They ended up having a kid together. Then another mom who she befriended told her she'd get more money if she divorced him and went after child support. So she did. So now he never sees his kid, and his son from his first marriage has been turned against him by his first wife. He still has a great relationship with his daughter from the first marriage, at least. Story 9. My ex-wife was the most negative, self-absorbed human I've ever met. She didn't start out that way. I wouldn't have married her if she had been that way from the beginning. Everything had to be her way. When I started saying no to her, then she filed for divorce. I don't know how it is in all states, obviously, but in our state, the person that filed has to get on the stand and state the reason they want to need the divorce. She got on the stand and the judge asked her why she was filing for divorce. She said, "Well, we're just two different people." The judge responded, "You're going to have to do much better than that." She thought for a few seconds and said, "We don't see eye to eye. I see things as black and white and he sees things as gray." The judge had a dumbfounded look on his face. He looked at me with what appeared to be a look of pity and excused her from the stand. He signed our papers. Story 10. My first workplace after college. Two women in the department of similar ages start hanging out. One is just married, the other is single but has a brother. Watched for 6 months as the single one worked on splitting up one marriage only to shove her new best friends forever into the arms of her brother. Reason for the split: differences in fidelity. The new couple most definitely consummated the relationship long before the divorce was even drafted. I feel sorry for her ex-husband. He didn't stand a chance against a firefighter just post 9/11 and his sister making his case every single day. No kids, thankfully. Story 11. I actually fully get this one, but weird smell. Family friend developed this odor. For years they tried to figure out why and couldn't. His wife didn't want to put up with it anymore. This was a very reasonable reason that the husband decided was petty. Another family friend impregnated his mistress of 2 years. His wife of 25 years found out when the mistress told her after he blew up at her for getting pregnant and said he would have nothing to do with her. She claimed she didn't know he was married until he pleaded for her to get an abortion and that she expected him to take responsibility. He eventually decided to be in his kid's life. His wife, one of my mom's best friends, was gutted. She would cry on our couch a lot, trying to decide if she could stomach him raising a kid with someone else because she didn't want to start over or date. She decided no. Their kids were already grown and she saw him differently, so she filed. When she served him papers, he said, he knew he messed up, but she was overreacting because it wouldn't be that big of a deal since he didn't plan to spend that much time with the kid anyway. She said in that moment she felt relief because she realized he was an A. Then he tried to marry the mistress and she rejected him too, and his young adult kids barely speak to him. Story 12. Friend of my dad married a Thai wife 7 years ago in Denmark. For the obvious reasons, love of Kyrol, her being 24 years younger than him, able to cook. Clean and conveniently from the poor Nebraska-Thailand region of Isa, and OFC, only interested in his sparkling, joyful personality, coarse, bullying, racist boomer. After 6 years, so about a year ago, his health went south, and while she did stay around for 3 to 4 months, she realized, him now retired, that he would eventually have to sell the house they lived in the countryside. Since she had sent most money she made home to Thailand to a savings account there and to her family and never paid rent. She saw her inheritance being siphoned away into the house debt every month now and promptly took the decision to divorce the man, lawyer in hand and all. She approached the divorce as a business case and just wanted to get as much stuff as possible, and to convert all the stuff into hard cash she would promptly send back home. The guy felt betrayed and really depressed, feeling he had taken her in and saved her from poverty when he had had a job, but alas half of not just his house, but his designer furniture and half his pension, cause he was old school and had cashed it all out to protect it against the state. Had he just not done the last bit, i.e. done nothing, the pension would have been safe in the divorce settlement. He had to move to a 2-room apartment in a poor part of the local town, and according to my dad, only him and another friend visits him, and that he is super depressed now and just wants to die fast. He has a bed, a couch, and a TV in the living room and spends his day just drinking the cheapest alcohol he can find and smoking 1-2 packs a day. She left the country when the divorce was finalized, like within the week of that, and never was heard from again by anyone she had spoken to here, even colleagues where she had her cleaning jobs. I don't blame the woman, but it was real cold the way she did it. Like no hate, just pure business, kinda like she 100% knew she was essentially a long-term prostitute and just made the most of it. Still not blaming her, he would never have found a woman to live with him, if they had both been on even terms. Story 13. Well, I got 2 actually. But the first one was an aunt and uncle of mine who always slept on same sides of the bed their entire marriage. Wife on left, husband on right. Always worked out. Moved into different house and husband all of a sudden thought they needed to switch because now he was no longer in between door and her, intruders. And this opened up a can of worms. But that was ostensibly the reason, which could be seen as petty. Second one was a widower neighbor had an adoptive daughter, and new wife was okay with her until she called new wife mum. Nobody here is. British, but kid was small, so who knows. And new wife lost her shit and left that next day, never to be seen again by anyone in our family, and husband would never say anything about it, like new wife never existed. Story 14. I almost got a divorce after 23 years as I was prescribed cannabis for anxiety that led to psychosis. So I tried to speak to my husband about it, but he was having none of it and would just get mad. I thought he was a jail guard, so I moved into a log home in the middle of the forest away from everyone, and he was happy to have me leave. I was detached from reality for 18 months, and he would drop food off on the weekends. I finally had a complete nervous breakdown and was involuntarily committed to a psych ward. I wanted to be released against doctor's orders, and my husband said to keep me, but they did release me to him. The first day out, he yelled at me for my behavior, so I went and stayed at a hotel room. That house has plummeted in value, and I've lost close to $300K. But when I asked my husband why the heck he didn't talk me out of buying or didn't sell last year, he tells me he will divorce me. Story 15. Okay, so my great-grandmother, who I called my G-Granny, was married 21 times. 7 were stereotypical gold digger marrying an old man scheme where she inherited the money or whatever they had when they passed. 4 were straight gold digger, I'm taking half you marriages. 10 times she was married to one guy, my biological great-grandfather, a man who I'll call Terry, and I only met once, when I was a baby right before he passed. This dude was 100% in on her schemes. Terry basically played the part of a permanent affair partner. They loved each other from all accounts and were your stereotypical Southern couple on the outside. But like damn if it weren't a lie. They would get married, legit, and she would wear her ring. Then she would go work a bar, a hotel, or a higher-end store and meet rich men who would hit on her. She would dangle the forbidden fruit of her being married to them, and would convince some sorry fool to marry her if she left her husband. Rinse, repeat. Hell, she would even get these affair partners to pay for her divorce, sucking them dry. Now, with that said, the 9th and final time they were divorced was, by all accounts, a legit breakup. They had separated for a few years due to his work taking him out of state. She didn't want to go, he did. Sad breakup. During that time, she racked up a few more marriages and even got a gas station and hotel out of it somewhere in Arkansas. He came back. She was finally done with her ways, and they remarried. Marriage number 19. Until she met another guy who liked the forbidden fruit. A man I'll call Carl. But she said, no, no, no. I am married. I ain't about that. I am a loyal woman. It was my biological great-grandfather, none other than Terry himself, who said, nah, he got money and I want it, who pushed her to do it. Surprise, surprise, she does so. But unlike the others, it seemed more out of desperation and less from greed. He paid for the divorce, but it ended up more contested. He stayed with her for 9 years. No other, including Terry, had had a consecutive streak that long. My family still raves about this man, about how tender he was to her, about how sweet he was to her children. My own grandmother loves him more than her own daddy. Yet she had not a cross word to say about her own daddy as well. In her words, he was just better. Carl ended up passing cancer just short of 10 years with my G-Granny. She had gone from mid-40s to mid-50s with this man. Sure, she inherited his money, which turned out to be basically a few houses right next to each other and about $15,000. She spent a good chunk of it on his burial and small renovations on the houses. By the time he had passed, he had moved her sister and her husband, and her brother into the 3 houses. Terry and her would remarry a few years later until his death in the mid-90s. She would pass in 03 of Alzheimer's. Eventually, her fortune that she had tried to amass turned into her house, some really expensive jewelry, and a closed gas station. She had sold or lost everything else. So that is the story of how my biological great-grandmother divorced my great-grandmother for not having an affair on him. All right, folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.